First, I want to address this morning the so called shooter who's a victim himself in Parkland, Florida. First of all, if you've read, anybody's cared, and there's a few that have, and I appreciate it, watch my YouTubes and Facebook over the years since 2012, actually, on Facebook, and 2011 on YouTube. And I've put it up on both several times a day, if not more, on videos and YouTubes on this whole subject and about my kidnapping. But I wanted to focus first on Nicholas Cruz, the so-called shooter. And it's proven the last few days now. I sent this out on YouTube and Facebook when it happened, that it was a mind control murder. He had been programmed from way back. And the media's built up all of these things that supposedly he was tried to cut himself, maybe did. Mind control does that. It will make it appear that you've committed suicide when you didn't. You were told to murder yourself, just like the Virginia Tech next door in '09, was it that happened? 33 were killed. The South Korean so-called shooter, who's a victim himself, did the shootings, and they were killed, and he turned the gun on himself. Well, that's murder by suicide. He was programmed to, just like Robin Williams, and a list. There's another list of the use of mind control, but it's hard to prove. It's invisible. The ones I've told about have been done in patterns, and you can at least prove at least enough of them that I'm telling the truth anyway. But I want to get back to this young man down there. He's going through holy hell right now. It could be your son. It could be your police chief that walked out shooting that was programmed. You don't know it. And I've put up how it's done since 1976, when I'm going to mention Larry Flynn because everybody knows who he is, and he helped me in a political campaign to replace a Dr. Congressman, Larry McDonald, from Atlanta, Piedmont Hospital, who I wrote about in a medical malpractice book in '78 and '79, and April Fool Day of '80, they tried to kill me again, and they almost succeeded. But anyway, this doctor, I'm going to fast forward and not tell the in-between hell. The KAL he was on was shot down by the Russians when it veered into Russian airspace. 1983, August the 31st. Now then, on that flight from Juneau was Richard Nixon. They took him off just before the flight left for South Korea. And supposedly, Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald was on the plane that went down with 260 plus. My information said right after that happened that he wasn't on it. He was taken off too, but I don't know that for sure about him being taken off. But he was one of the people in my book that was unpublished, and he was part of trying to have me killed, and Larry Flint mentions that in his endorsement. It was a full page. I usually put it up so any of my Facebook will have it, or YouTube on them, and what he said in April of '84. Now back to this young man, because the man that shot Larry Flynn was programmed. You can call him a Manchurian candidate or whatever you want to. That's how George Wallace was shot. George Wallace was not a friend of Lina Dempsey's. I was kidnapped and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given the name of her dead twin child that she murdered. She murdered both her twins. But it was meant for them to kidnap me and be brought over there, because they killed her a week or 2 weeks before I was put there. She was a year older than me, and this is 1941, and I was born in '39. But the point is also of them kidnapping and the laws and torture against me and my family, and that were born here, my sons, and then my mom and dad in my country. My mom was from Wisconsin. George O'Keefe is my aunt, my mother's sister. My mother was a baby sister, the O'Keefes. So they paid a hefty price. But anyway, back to this young man. set up here as I have in a whole bunch of videos, bunch, that you can call it behavior modification if you want to. There's kids that their parents will readily take up, if they do anything out of sorts, they'll take them to a psychiatrist, and behavior modification will be put on there as a reason for the visits and maybe hospitalization or etc., etc. When your insurance runs out, so does the need for the hospital and the doctor, or at least the hospital, in a lot of instances. So behavior modification means you change that he's supposed or she's acting up, and they're going to be made to modify their behavior. You get that. Well, mind control goes a bit further. You don't know you're getting it. You're being programmed. If you did find out, Paddock, Las Vegas, that's a good one. They were going to do an autopsy on his brain to find the motive. Well, autopsy his body and find the chip in him, which is probably in his root canal. That's the place that it usually goes. So you could autopsy a whole bunch of these. Well, they're dead. Some of them are dead now, but like Aurora, Colorado, James Holmes, he's no more mentally ill than the most sane person. He's programmed, and he's paying for a crime that he didn't do. And this goes for the guy that was the shooter at Tucson with the Gabby Gifford, who was a congressman. This was really done in patterns, and you start getting some laid out in front, and you can't ignore it. But her husband is Mark Kelly, twin to Scott Kelly, the astronauts, NASA, and all that. They're trying to take the guns away. She was shot, along with a bunch of others. I don't know how many others were shot in Tucson. Now then, behavior modification is not just that. They take away any knowledge that you're being programmed. And that's the reason all of these are so methodical. The buying of the guns, and it's not just guns. There's Jens Orings is in prison in Buckingham, Virginia, or he was. I don't know if they've switched him to another prison. Knives were used in the murder of Elizabeth Haysom's parents in Bedford. He's in jail and she's in jail. They didn't do it. They're innocent. But my point in it is, like Bonnie Saylor, when I worked for the district attorney in 1980 in Huntsville, Alabama, as Madison County DA, she came to me and said, "Please help me." And I thought, lady, do you even have an inkling of what's been done to me? And she said she had gone to everybody, the district attorney I worked for, to everybody. She wanted me to go on her behalf because her husband, Saylor, had worked and had ready to retire at Redstone Arsenal, or for the government there. That's Redstone, Marshall Space Flight Center, etc. A lot of happenings going on there and controlled out of there still. So her husband and two others were in the same lab, and they had top security ready to retire. Suddenly they're put under investigation, and she goes home to their trailer, and he's in the bathtub with a rifle in his, I don't know if she said his head was blown off, or he was shot supposedly he used the rifle on himself. But he's dead, and the next one developed rare cancer overnight. He died. The other one drove his car into the Tennessee River and drowned, all within 3 months. The Tesla files that I've been telling about were stolen in 1930, where you can create an illness or you can cure it. So if they told all this, that they're being knocked off, and deaths made of natural cause, and there's some actors that's been knocked off, wow, would this really get to some people? But back to the point, if anybody's listening. This young man, I'm using this because this just happened. He, behavior modification, it was mind control used on him. Now then, Mr. and Mrs. Sneed that he lived with have proved my point to a degree. They just don't have the words about mind control and chipping and all that. They even are being interviewed now saying this young man followed the rules. He was a really nice person, and I'm sure he was. Now then, he's going, you can't imagine how much hell he's going through. And everybody hates him. My point here is throughout all of this, I have gotten no support, and I've been kept penniless and homeless. And people tell me, and I'm going to say this real quick here, I was kidnapped from Buckingham Palace. My father is Edward VIII, and they have made him look like every lie in the book. He never even married Wallace Warfield Simpson, your American spy. She married a double, or at least one of the doubles, became the illegal Duke and Duchess of Windsor. So you employed and installed your own monarch, George VI, the Illuminati that kidnapped me, and that's you all, and brought me here, and that's the Kennedys, and the rest. I guess I better shut up. I'm making this video this morning, and you start doing anything political, well, you know what, now they make it so easy, they just hire an attorney who you've never seen. He goes out and has a warrant and has you locked up, and if you're political, you never walk out. But hey, they're good doctors. You can trust them, or mental health people. Yeah, you believe that? You believe in the tooth fairy. But anyway, the Sneeds told you how he acted with them, and they've just proved my point. If you control someone's mind, you take away any civil liberty, you take away their right to think on their own. And Timothy McVeigh of the Oklahoma City that said the U.S. put a chip up his buttocks was put to death. Scott Peterson's on death row. Remember Amber Fried? You should get into this. Amber is associated with what? And I've been telling this and showing it every day for the last, I don't know how long. When I was doing the book, I had a letter from the FBI, ongoing investigation, national security involved. And I don't think this is going up. I'm going to quit. My point is, down in Florida, if people had done this back before, when I was doing the book, if they had told the truth then, none of this would have happened. It wouldn't have happened to me. If they had confronted the fact I was kidnapped and I was writing the book and letter from the feds and all this, and I took it to the media, believe me, on my crawling almost with a letter from the feds where the book went before Ravel's board and the Hearst. I didn't know anything about Patty Hearst back then, and the Hearst helping kidnap me in my kidnapping. They're mafia, global government. Your United Nation is your front for them now. But I was running to Atlanta Journal, and I didn't know Patty Hearst kidnapping was. They helped kidnap me. And so the Hearst actually, you have to do something so you don't scream. I'm going to see if this is going up. Yeah. Oh, back then, this is 78 and 79, and I've gone, well, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, I got shoved out the door at the Hearst in Atlanta. They had an office there. They did keep my book, a copy of my book. And I didn't know why, and now then it makes sense. I found out in 83 my real name, kidnapping, and when I was in that campaign to replace the doctor, Congressman Larry McDonald I'd written about, and I was out at Flint's. It was a little later I found out. But I'm going to lose my train of thought here. It's early in the morning, and I'm not feeling so great with the life I've lived and wondering where my children are while I'm trying to tell you what's being done to yours and you. It's not save the next girl or boy that I've been telling about. You tell about what's being used because it's done in mass now. It's very scary. If you knew, Edward Snowden touched on some of it. He's in exile now. Is he alive? I guess he is. He's in Russia. But anyway, nobody in this, they tried to shut me up. I've been kept penniless and homeless and tortured. I lived on the Appalachian Trail, and you got the forest rangers coming out there, and they could do anything they wanted to me. All I needed was decent place to live, and I have an immune disorder, and that's been used to run me, and it makes me look flaky if you don't get it before court. Even though they're afraid of it. They don't want to hear it, that the government's into that. They'd rather just pretend, oh, it's not really happening. So when somebody tells me that, I'm going to go ahead and say it, if she watches it, she can, that they bought me a bag of food that's given out to anybody and everybody, and I don't get it in a day hardly, if I get that. And then they sit and pray for me. I'm going to use this as an example. Anybody and everybody could have come in and helped me rather than hurting me. Where have all the churches been? Where have all these people that give willy-nilly and build homes for people? Every day around here in Roanoke in the United States does it. They've ignored me. They have hated my guts. They don't like what I'm saying and telling. They don't like the fact that I'm British, and that if this is told, it's one hell of a horror story done to me and my family by the Americans. Okay, so when you say I don't have, that I'm homeless, I am. I have homes. Elizabeth's illegal and her father, and believe me, she knows, they all do. She's living in my homes. How many castles does she go back and forth, and she puts her brood of kids and grandkids in them, and great-grandkids? Does she have great? Yeah, that's what George is, and the other two, one's on its way. So how do I evict them? I've got to hope the British government can save me, or the Americans at some level, maybe FBI. Hey, wouldn't that be good? And this is all told, and then I wouldn't be homeless anymore. I'd have what you took. You kidnapped me. You stole me. You took out my mom and dad. You've done things to my kids that's so deplorable. And here you've got all these people suddenly at Parkland. Down here, all these students are ready to go, and they're going to march, and man, they are. And they're getting the attention of the president. And here I sit in the wilderness, and I'm going to say it, because that's where I've had to live, and I've had things done to me, and these are the kids that I was for trying to tell about. It could have been any one of them. And they're so gun-ho to take out the rifles. If you want to go after the real weapon, it's mind control. You're just helping in the people that's doing this, taking your rifles away from you and the guns and your protection. So I guess that's all I had to say. It's, if you were trying to prove something, it's what I've done and what I've gone through, telling the truth and laying it out to where any fool would know I'm telling the truth. They wouldn't doubt it, but I've got to know people and how they react in certain situations. And now then, all these young people that are marching and up there causing all this media attention, only it's a total lie. Taking out the rifles aren't going to help a thing. It's, you have to confront the use of mind control. And MK Ultra was brought before Congress in 65 or 63, given a slap on the wrist, and away they go. Well, I don't know. Who can say they're the bad guys? The bad guys are out here who've known all this and who have failed because they're afraid to act. And in reality, they've tried to shut me up. Oh, have they? I love my kids too. It's a horror story to know that I live among people that hate my guts because I've told the truth. So, I don't know. I'm sure I didn't.